All right, we are on air. It is Thursday, February 5th, 2015. We're here today to talk about design tasks for Backdrop CMS. Most of you probably already know Backdrop CMS is a content management system specifically geared towards small, medium-sized businesses, nonprofits. Our target audience for the foreseeable future are people who are moving off of the 777 platform because they're worried about moving to 888 or because they can't afford it or because they don't like it or whatever. We like 777. Backdrop is very similar to 777, and we're trying to do a bunch of focus on design, usability, things that Drupal has not been particularly good at in the past that we're trying to improve, because long term our target audience is to move towards WordPress, Squarespace, people who care more about user experience and aesthetic than the traditional Drupal developer market. So things we're working on right now, the Backdrop CMS.org flagship website is being ported to Backdrop. That's something I'm going to work on today. I know Nate's been itching to work on that too, so we might have to fight over who's doing what. But as that gets ported to Backdrop, we'll also need to take the current theme that's on that site and port it to Backdrop as well. And in that process, we'll be able to implement the last feature that I think we have designs for that we haven't built yet, which is the mobile navigation. So we've been holding off on that until it got moved to Backdrop, but that is in our near future. Other things we've got going on, the API site, Nate has already ported to Backdrop, which is great, but it's currently running Bartik's theme. So we need to try and figure out if we can take the theme from backdropcms.org and adapt it for api.backdropcms.org. Apparently we've gotten a lot of feedback that the theme that's on there now is infinitely better than the theme that was on there before, which was, I don't even know, it was some contributed theme from 777 that we tried to kind of mangle together to make it work, which is good. So the question is, if we take the front-facing site for API, for the non-API site, and put it on the API site, is it going to be better than the one that we have now? I think it will. I think we should try it and see, because it will need some adapting, because the design that we have worked out for the primary site is going to need a little, fussing. It's not the same content. It's not the same kind of stuff. So we'll take a look at that once we get that up. Darius, maybe I'll throw that on a dev site and send you a link to it just to have you,
Sure.
look at it and be like, oh my God, it's not going to work. Then we'll know it's not going to work. But if it's going to work,
cool.
that would be a good direction to go for that, I think. Other stuff we're working on, Backdrop the product, which I think is our primary focus right now. It's out. Our website is good. We've got to move that over, obviously. But next on the list is Backdrop the product. We have a new style guide. I was just taking a look at it right now, Darius, before this call, and I squealed with delight.
The work in progress. It's taking me longer than I expected, but I've been making some decent pushes lately.
Yeah, it looks so much better. All I saw, I loaded up and I saw the sub tabs and was like, yes, the tabs are fixed.
Yeah, there was more work on there too than I first thought.
Yeah.
So it's been going pretty well, but
Okay.
doing the UI element theming stuff it's involved. It's been interesting.
A lot of bits and pieces for sure.
Yeah,
That's
and it's funny
tricky.
because all of it, you look at it and you're like, there's no design on this. It's just...
I know, right? It looks like nothing, but seriously, it's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears.
Yeah.
Design and code and a lot of stuff. So it's been a learning experience for sure. But it's
Wow.
been cool. I'm glad that I was able to get in there and do it myself.
Yeah, this does look good. It's a lot better.
I'm going to post a link in the Hangout too. But yeah, this is our GitHub style guide. I think it looks so much better. I mean, the form elements look great.
Oh, yeah, I love the form elements. Just the text area looks awesome.
I mean, look at the
text
date
field.
selector. I mean, just so much better.
Yeah, nice one. Wow, this is looking a lot better.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It looks like someone actually thought about everything.
I know. For the first time, it feels way less Drupal-y for once.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's coming along really well.
Well, thank you. Good. That's good to hear too, because I'm like, I hope it's not taking too long. It's been kind of tedious, but
no. I mean, so what we're looking at for timeline here too is once we get done with the style guide, we've got a couple of people who are ready to start implementing things in Backdrop, but we have some technical challenges to figure out how to do that. So we've got two current approaches, and I'm not sure we've made a decision yet on how we're going to do it. One of them is to, we'll look at all of the changes that are in the style guide, and we'll try and figure out how many of those changes should go directly into the styles in core. So like if we're changing like tab styles or something, do those styles go into core's styling of the tab styles, or do they go into the admin theme styling of those tab styles? And we'll need to make decisions on almost all of these elements as to where those changes go. And some of the decisions will be based on how drastic the changes are. Because if the change is just CSS, it's pretty easy to put into core. But if the change involves markup changes, that's much harder because other people might have been depending on the markup that's already in core at this point. So those changes would need to go into the theme itself. So we'll need to be kind of looking at each element, figuring out how those changes should be made. The stuff that can go into core, we can put into core, but I don't think that's going to go in super urgently. And then the other things we're trying to do is figure out for the stuff that can't go directly into core, the stuff that has to go or into system or wherever it came from originally, the stuff that has to go into the 7 theme, we need to make a decision about whether we're going to change 7 or whether we're going to introduce a new admin theme that contains all of our interaction patterns and colors and shapes and whatever we've got going on. And then for new versions of Backdrop, we can change the default theme so then when it ships out of the box, you get Backdrop's admin theme turned on. But for all people that are currently running Backdrop, it would just keep 7 unless they went and changed that theme themselves. And for that change, that's not going to happen until May 15th. So the bigger chunk of stuff we're working on, either way, whether it's pushed into 7 or into a new theme, that probably won't go out until May 15th. So it's just a matter of looking at deciding what needs to go where. Some things like system changes we might be able to make earlier, but I don't think we're in a super hurry anymore. It's more about making sure that the end product is exactly what we want and then mapping out the road to get there. So, Nate, did you have anything to comment there? It looked like I interrupted you once when you were thinking about adding something.
No, I don't have anything. I mean, I think we do need to decide exactly what you said, whether or not we want to modify 7 and just make it be the theme in Backdrop, or if we want to make a new one. There's virtues to both approaches. I'm kind of personally leaning towards just modifying 7 because the idea of maintaining 2 themes for all of the 1.x release doesn't seem very appealing to me.
Yeah.
So
I also am not too interested in maintaining 2 admin themes for all of the 1.x release for Backdrop. But one thing that always has really bothered me about 7 is the fact that it's named 7, and that kind of made sense when you were running Drupal 7. But now that we're running Backdrop 1, there's absolutely no reason for your theme to be, your administration theme to be named 7. On the other hand, like naming things is apparently the one thing that like is the hardest in the world to do. So coming up with a better name is really hard. So in terms of changing the 7 theme, like we can change its name in the user interface, but we can't change its name in the code, which is then kind of a weird mismatch thing to have too. So maybe we just say, screw it. People who know Drupal know this. For some reason your admin theme is called 7 and they'll get it, and people who don't will like scratch their heads and think we're silly, but it's only for the 1.0 release and we can fix it later.
Well, a lot of people don't even know that there's a concept of an administrative theme in the first place or what its name is, so I don't think that it affects.
Well, the user interface problem is when you're on the themes page, there's like a drop-down list, and if it says something like 7 in it, you have no idea like what that has any relation to. You're like, what is this drop-down? I don't know. We can also study, I mean, we've studied it in Drupal 7 and it's failed. We can study it in Backdrop with like, or in test studies or whatever with different names and see if even changing the name helps, because if it doesn't, then it doesn't, the problem isn't the name, the problem is the interface.
Yeah,
I think people just glaze over the name. Like if I were to see it, I would either get it or not and just be okay. Because there's so many wacky names for tech stuff out there.
Yeah.
Like whatever.
Yeah,
and
it's like
since there's only one admin theme out of the box, we could even disable that element until someone adds an admin theme, and then you wouldn't be confused by it. It wouldn't even be there to distract you. And if you're not going to add a new admin theme, you don't need that selector either. So that might solve the usability problem without having to change any names of anything.
Yeah, I've mentioned that in the past, that we could put in the .info file whether or not it's an admin theme or not. So admin equals true in the .info file. And then if it's not an admin theme, like it's ridiculous that it lets you put your front-end theme as an admin theme when most of the time that doesn't work in the first place.
That's not true. That's actually a really common use case.
Well, okay, if you wanted to do that, then you would put admin equals true into your front-end theme, and then you would have it as an admin and back-end theme. But if it's not specified as an admin theme, it shouldn't show up in the dropdown in the first place.
And we've already made it so that admin themes don't show up in the front end interface. So you can't turn on 7 as a front end facing theme.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So that's already slightly better than Drupal 7. But yeah, okay. So there's other solutions to this problem that don't involve changing the name. I think that's a good path forward. Then should we just go ahead and call this decision and say when we're ready to make the changes, some of them will go into core and some will go to 7, and we're going to throw out the idea of a new admin theme.
I think that sounds good for the time being, and we can address your naming inconsistency concern. Yeah, in 2.x, and we can just rename the theme and keep the same appearance. And we can do another update if we want to at that point. But yeah, even if we keep it, we can just rename it in 2.x, and then that'll be that.
Okay, I think that sounds good. I'll make an issue to go update that GitHub issue. Yay. Okay, so that's our path forward. Try and get as much stuff as we can done between now and May 15th, and then on May 15th we'll have the rest of it go out in the 1.1 release of Backdrop.
I just checked the theme settings, by the way. It looks like you can still turn on 7 as your front-end theme.
Really?
Yeah, because I don't think we have any indication of whether or not a theme is intended to be an admin theme or not.
I thought we marked 7 as hidden or something.
We marked Stark as hidden.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it actually is much better just without Stark on this stupid list, because I hated Stark because, like, you would never turn on Stark unless you were a developer.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, we'll solve the deconfuse the admin themes page in a different issue.
Okay.
I'll make a note for that too. But moving on. So many issues. Okay. All right. So other things we're working on. A new front end theme. So Drupal had both Garland and Bartik as front-end theme options in Drupal 7, neither of which were super useful in the real world. In Drupal 8, they removed Garland and did not add another front-end theme. And when we forked, we inherited that same situation. So we currently have one front-end theme in Backdrop, which is Bartik, and we have no alternatives. And though Bartik is pretty useful in terms of showing like integration with color module and how to override things and a whole bunch of other stuff going on, I don't feel like very many people actually use Bartik on their site when they ship it. They look at it and go, oh, I need a new theme, and they put something else on. I would love if we could have some kind of front-end theme that was generic and looked good, that people could say, I can launch a site using this theme. And Nate, you pointed out we've got a new contrib theme. Do you remember which one it's called?
Radix, the Bootstrap one?
Or something, which is a Bootstrap-based front-end theme. It was, I think, one of our first themes that was ported, maybe the first theme that was ported to Backdrop. It looks pretty good. It is generic. It is something that I think anyone could use, and I would love to see something like that go into core. Our process for getting a new front-end theme into core, I think, is to build it out in contrib, to have a whole bunch of people use it, have a whole bunch of people test it, and then kind of nominate one of these contrib themes for inclusion in core. I would love if we could get more than one option to decide on so that we could kind of compare pros and cons of different themes. I think we have Radu volunteered to do a bunch of front-end work for Backdrop, and we've asked him to create a contrib theme, port anything or create something new or whatever, just for comparison. But I just want to throw this out to anyone else who is a front-end designer, themer, developer, whatever. If you want to create a front-end theme for Backdrop in contrib, we are looking for new front-end themes to put into core, just something that someone could actually ship a site with. So if you have something like that that you've been using in Drupal 7, or a base theme that companies use, or whatever it is, we are on the lookout for something like that. So the more solid front-end themes we have in Backdrop, in contrib, I think is going to be painting the better picture for what we're going to put into core in the future. So just throw that out there too. Okay, so we also have a special tag in the GitHub queue for all design-related issues, and this is the kind of thing where sometimes someone will say, I really wish that this thing looked different, and then all the people in the queue are like, I agree, but none of us have any design skills, so we're not going to be making any mock-ups or thinking about better ways to solve that problem. So we have this tag, audience design, and then we can hopefully get some design or user interface people to weigh in on the issue, saying whether we should do something about it or not, and if we should, then we need a new design piece for it. And so we've got
Do you have
a
a
couple
link
of
for that?
yes, here, let me post that in here. There's, I think, maybe only 10 issues right now. I don't think I went back through the list of all of our existing issues and tagged anything that had a design requirement with needs design, but anytime anything new goes up, I usually try and tag it. If anyone's working on the issue queue and finds anything that looks like it needs design, go ahead and add the tag, because it certainly could be missing. Or if you add new issues, add that too. And I think this is something that we can kind of keep an eye on as well. There's some doozies in here too, like we did want to split the edit form for editing content into 2 columns, and that was the kind of thing that we're like, oh, that's going to be really hard. We'll postpone that and do that later. So that's going to need some thought. Same thing for the UI for building layouts. Bojan said he was going to work on it. I think he's going to be here this week. Is it tonight? You're supposed to be with him?
Yeah, he'll be here this weekend and through all next week.
Okay. So next week we're going to get to talk to him in person, and we'll see how much work he's done on interface for that. But that might be, if he's busy and not working on it, that would be something that I would like to get sorted out sooner rather than later. We're doing a lot of promotion on how awesome layouts is. I would like it to be even more awesome before everyone reads the articles and takes a first spin. So that's something that we could definitely use some help on there too. And if either of you guys see anything in here that you're like, oh, I can fix that, let us know. Let's see. I lost my agenda. Okay, so similar to the design tag that we have on the GitHub queue, we also have a way to identify issues that are specifically related to user experience. And rather than using a tag, we're just prefixing the title with the square brackets and the letters UX in it, so that anyone who has any problems with usability can create an issue tagged with UX, and we'll try and figure out the right way to solve it. That may involve redesigning something, that may not. It may just be add some help text or make the thing behave in a different way, add a feature or whatever, and it would solve the issue. But that's also on our list here because it may factor in. And then also we have this great set of human interface guidelines, which we started on a while ago, which I think is something that would be good for us to get nailed down. I know we didn't get it done before 1.0 came out, and I'm not sure all of the interfaces in core match our guidelines, but we were trying to kind of document the tools that we have in Backdrop for people interacting with the software. Like, when do you use a vertical tab? When do you use a a button, or when to use a drop button. And I think that it would be good for us to kind of establish what those interfaces are and when they should be used, so that Contrib can say, oh, I need to build an interface. What tools should I use, and what are the rules that I follow for that? In Drupal, it's kind of completely arbitrary when someone decides to use a vertical tab. Even in core, there are some places that use them in the correct way, and some places that use them in a way that was not intended for them to be used, and so it makes it really hard for Contrib to figure out what to follow. I think we have a great start on these human interface guidelines. We've got the Backdrop HIG repository on GitHub, but it definitely isn't done yet, and we could use some help filling it out. So we've got a good start. I'm going to paste a link to this too. But if anyone is super interested in computer-human interaction and wants to help us go through and fill this out and figure it out, what our guidelines should be, I think that would be really great for Backdrop before we could get to 2.0, when it really starts to be super important about usability, and when we start to target these people who are used to having a super slick user interface. It would be great if we had these principles ironed out and decided on, and then started updating core to match them.
Yeah, a good example of something that we've never really quite figured out is like a user interface element that we have that gets abused and or used and abused all the time is vertical tabs, for example. Like we even have an issue for, apply vertical tabs to all entity types, but it's rough because we don't actually know that vertical tabs are actually appropriate for all of those locations, and that's what the human interface guidelines is intended to do, is to say, use element X in situation Y. But what we have right now is that we just end up with stuff getting used all over the place because it's the only element we have. And whether it's appropriate or not, people end up using it just because they like the way it looks or something like that.
Or because they think they're supposed to.
Yeah, but we don't really know when they're supposed to or not,
Mm-hmm.
It's just kind of arbitrary when we use certain elements in certain locations.
I think we've talked about this a couple of times too. We have a similar document for Backdrop brand guidelines. Drupal.org has a super extensive page that talks about how the logo needs to be positioned and how much space should be around it and what colors should be used. And our press kit page is kind of a super lightweight version of that talks about how Backdrop got its name, what its logo looks like, what its dragon looks like, and that's kind of it. I don't know if we need anything more extensive than that. I originally thought that we wanted a page more like Drupal.org's, but the more I look at our press kit, I feel like that's probably fine. I think it would be good to have our brand guidelines, in particular, like our color palette, published somewhere where people could find it more easily. Because I've had a couple of people be like, hey, I remember that you mentioned that Backdrop had a color palette, but I can't find it, and then I email them the document. And I don't think that's necessarily the right place for that is on the press kit page, because that's not something that the press needs to know. It's only a resource that kind of our internal team needs to use. Anyone who's making stickers or T-shirts or web pages or whatever it is needs to have those colors. But I don't know what the right place is for them. So I don't know if anyone has any ideas about that.
I mean, I think, like you said, it's a little out of the scope of what the press would need, but there is a significant amount of overlap between what they want and what a designer or a themer or somebody would also need access to. And I think I really like how simple the scrolling version of it is. It's just all right there.
Yeah.
So it's like if you make another resource similar to that, there's going to be redundancy in a lot of the resources.
Okay.
So I don't know if we want that, have two sections that are really similar but with two different audiences, or just have one that works for all of our audiences.
So we could add like another section you were thinking maybe to the bottom of the page that's like, hey, for building stuff, here's a couple of other resources, and just throw it up there.
Yeah, maybe do a tab or something. But I do like having all that in one place. I think that's handy. I mean, it's also safe time.
You could come up with like an official place, because maybe stuff will come up like this more often, where we need some way to distribute things to people. Maybe we just need like an official Backdrop stuff place. So like I know keeping design files in GitHub is not super handy. Right now, all of our Backdrop stuff seems to live on GitHub. But something like these image files and the press kit we've posted on this page because it seems to be a better fit for it. But maybe we need a different solution that's like, here are all the working files for, Drop the Dragon or whatever it is that you want, and put them someplace where someone can access them, or anyone can grab color samples for the press kit, or I don't know.
Yeah. Think of some way of like solving two different audience use cases and having a repository for that stuff. I will think about it.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have an answer right now. Every time I see this color graphic in the agenda, I'm like, I wish we had a better place to keep this. Because I'm pretty sure when everyone's like, I think I saw the color somewhere, where were they? I'm like, it was in the agenda. That's the only place you've seen it. Okay. Well, we'll figure out whether we need a more official brand guideline document. I kind of think we don't. More comprehensive, we could add something if we wanted to, or we could just throw resources up in some folder somewhere and point at them, which I think is also fine.
Yeah.
Also,
I
think
keeping it as wide as possible is good too, because some of those get really just like excessive. Like we need 10 pixels around the logo and this and that. And it's like, But no one ever really reads that or follows it anyway. That's pretty obvious. Like, don't mangle our logo. Like, if you do, you don't know what you're doing anyway, and you probably wouldn't have read it in the first place. So,
Okay. I think that sounds
keeping it
good.
light is good.
And I think I've got a link in here for our official font, but I don't think this is our official font anymore. This still says Source Sans Pro. Is that right, Darius?
That's the right one. Yeah,
Okay.
I think we were using Open Sans before.
Okay. All right. And then this has been updated since then. All right, well, that's all I have for our agenda today. I noticed in the chat here there's some discussion going on about Panoply. Do we want to bring that into the video too and see if we get any more feedback from viewers later? And this is, I think, so Nate earlier this week asked me the same question, which is how does a solution like Panoply fit into Backdrop? Because Backdrop has layouts, and layouts have an equivalent of what was panels everywhere in Drupal. And Panoply is basically a collection of things that go along with panels and panels everywhere. It's a collection of layouts. It's a collection of other panels modules like Panelizer and fieldable content panes and a bunch of other stuff that fits together into a really great package. In Backdrop, we have panels everywhere and panels. We don't have Panelizer, which creates a layout for each piece of content on your site. We don't have fieldable panel panes, but we are planning on making blocks fieldable, which would be equivalent, but that won't be till Backdrop 2. And then a whole bunch of other stuff like Panelizer, we don't have a plan for in Backdrop, so that's something that could be ported probably, but it would need to be ported to Backdrop's version of layouts, obviously not to work with the panels module as it does in Drupal 7. So philosophically, there's a bigger issue here of like we've moved the panels API and it's now called layouts, but how all the pieces fit together in Backdrop is going to work a little bit different than it did in Drupal. So I don't know, Nate, you've been answering some of these questions. Do you want to weigh in here and see?
Yeah, well, I think you basically covered it. I mean, the concept of Panoply is a little bit more than just laying stuff out. As Jen and I have talked about this past week, that it includes Panoply. Basically, is it's a distribution that is built around all of the functionality of panels, but panels is like kind of the most basic concept of Panoply. It's the level of integration that's put into it that makes Panoply something different than panels or Panelizer by itself. And so layouts itself replaces panels, so you don't need panels, that's for certain. But all of the concepts that Panoply integrated into panels, we basically don't have any equivalent of at this point. But they all could be written for Backdrop, but they all need to be written against layouts instead of panels. So the possibility is there, but it would take a lot of work still to kind of make all of those pieces work with Backdrop.
So I think, like, in terms of how all the pieces fit, we've got a couple of different options into how to pursue these things too. Like in Drupal, there were people that made blocks into fieldable entities. There's this module called Bean. And then there's also people who made content panes into fieldable entities, which were called fieldable panels panes or fieldable content panes or something like that. Those two solutions are the same, right? One of them just goes into the blocks system and one goes into the panel system. And in Backdrop, we've married the blocks and the panel system together. So in Backdrop, there will only be one solution for that problem, and it would probably be something more like Bean, I'm guessing. So if we can get a Bean for Backdrop 1, that might be the thing that goes into Backdrop 2 that would solve both those problems into core if we liked the way that solution happened. And for Panelizer, that I don't think, I mean, that was kind of, I guess, equivalent to some version of context. I don't know how you would do that without panels. I guess it would probably be context. But Panelizer is something that would also could be ported directly to Backdrop. The API under the hood for panels is very, very similar to the API under the hood for layouts. It just needs to be rewritten in an object-oriented fashion. I think it's the only difference. The same way that we port layouts, but the same way we'd port plugins, other plugins like access rules. Panelizer has a bunch of stuff like that can be ported in the same way to make it work for Backdrop. So there is kind of a very straightforward path to get Panelizer into Backdrop if you wanted to go that route, and I think that would solve half the problems. And then the other things that Panoply provides, I think the thing that's most valuable, I think it's most attractive to me, are that great set of responsive layouts that it comes with out of the box. And hopefully porting those will be super quick and easy. But again, layouts in panels or plugins for panels, layouts in Backdrop are a top-level concept like a modular theme. So probably what we would like to do is take all of the layouts from Panelizer, port them into like a either a whole bunch of individual layouts so you can pick and choose what you want, or maybe even a module that provides a suite of these layouts. That's also something you do for Backdrop. And I think there's a potential for getting a bunch of those into core long-term too, if we look at the layouts and say, we like the responsive designs, we like the options that are provided, here's 20 layouts that are going to go into core. And I think that that's the kind of thing where the more layouts we have in core, the more useful Backdrop becomes out of the box. But it's a different kind of a port. So rather than porting it from a plugin for layouts, you port it to a completely top-level concept. So I think everything that exists in Panoply, we've only covered a couple of those things, but everything that exists now can be moved into Backdrop if you wanted to create a very similar thing like Panoply in Backdrop. They would just all need to be thought about a little differently in how you get them moved over. So hope that answers that question, and that's actually a good thing to bring up too, because we've been talking about it a lot. It's something that I think a lot of people who are using Panoply now are wondering, like, what are their options for the future, because Drupal 8 doesn't have a panels yet, and I'm not sure how much progress is happening in that direction. So they're like, well, there's kind of almost a panels in Backdrop, so what does the path there look like? So yeah, that's kind of, I think, where we're at. All right, are there any other items we should discuss? Are there any, this is, I guess, a bigger question, are there any other design tasks that we should talk about in this meeting? It feels like we're getting a lot of stuff done, which is good, but also that our list is getting short. So I don't know, if there's anything that's bothering you we need designed.
No,
no. Oh, go ahead.
Oh,
Okay.
I was going to say for anybody that watches this meeting online later, because we only have this meeting once every 2 weeks, if you're interested in participating in design tests and Backdrop in general, there is the list of issues that's tagged with audience design in GitHub. But really the area that we need the most help, or the area that has the most capacity to absorb designers, is in the creation and porting of contributed themes. So if you're interested in just diving into Backdrop and you haven't yet, and you do design-related tasks, making more themes for Backdrop would be the best place to dive in and get familiar with the system. And we'd love to have a lot more themes. So that's just all I wanted to add.
Okay. Is there anything else we should talk about this week?
I just got to finish up the admin, and then I think we talked about the next step being the Backdrop website.
Okay.
Yeah. So
That sounds
I've
great.
got my work cut out for me, and it's happening. Slow but sure.
All right. Well, thanks, guys, for coming to the meeting. We will be back online in half an hour to talk about development tasks if anyone's interested in that. Otherwise, I will see you in IRC.
Awesome.
Bye, guys.
Hey, bye-bye.